Record. And we're back. Thanks for joining us on the Coruscant Knights podcast. We're happy to have you here. My name is Cooper, and alongside me, as always, is Mark
Hello there.
and Jack.
Hello, everyone.
It's nice to see you guys this morning. Today we are doing something a little bit different. We are ranking the Star Wars movies. For those who have been following along with our rewatch series, which we finished last week, we kind of gave our own scores, not trying to compare to the other movies. This one is a direct comparison where suggesting which movies we like the most, which ones we don't like, and which ones are kind of in the middle. So this will be very much a comparison, and we felt that we owed it to those who have listened to the whole series because we didn't really explicitly say which ones were the better ones, or which ones were the better ones in comparison, I guess you could say. So that's what we're doing today. We're ranking them. Thanks for joining us as always. If you want to go follow us on Instagram and TikTok, you can do so. They're under the handle at Coruscant Knights. Big thanks to Ben and Akita, our patrons, who continue to support us. If you want to go support us, the link is in our Instagram bio. Last thing, for those who are listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, you won't be able to see the graphic we have, obviously. We will put it up on Instagram, or you can go watch the video on YouTube later, and it'll be there to follow along. I think I've covered everything. We ready to start?
Let's go.
Okay, all right. So we will we'll go in chronological order. We'll start with Phantom Menace and finish with Rise. So, shall we get started? We'll move Phantom Menace. Ready? 3, 2, 1.
Ooh.
Is that fair? That's Attack of the Clones, Cooper.
Oh, sorry, I put Attack of the Clones.
I
Okay,
am
no.
putting
I saw the yellow poster. I'm like, hang on. All right, yeah, okay.
mine in great.
Ooh, okay. Mark, why'd you put it in
So
great?
I just also want to mention the reason mine isn't going at the same time is because of technical difficulties. So Jack will be moving it for me. But the reason I've put it in great, and I think honestly it's solely because of the duel at the end with Darth Maul and
Yeah, that's
Darth
fair.
Maul in general because he's just really cool.
I think main reason why I put in average is obviously for the duel, but the political aspect was cool too. But I think everything else, like pacing, even some of the characters and the story overall, was quite lackluster compared to the others. Compared to the others is the key word. So yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think when you look at it on its own, it's not bad, and it introduces some really quite interesting themes to Star Wars. But overall, it's pretty slow. That middle bit, I remember when we analyzed it, I just remember that middle bit dragging on for so
The
long.
Gungan City 2 stuff. Oh,
I think
yeah,
that was again
so-
where in that episode where our differences was because I didn't necessarily agree with that.
Yeah. Anyway, so all
Interesting.
right, Attack of the Clones.
So far, pretty consistent.
Yeah, pretty good. Attack of the Clones.
Here we go.
3, 2, 1, go.
Great.
Oh,
Right. What about for you, Mark?
Great.
all right,
Nice.
we all agree.
Yeah.
So I went great because I think it does a lot better than the Phantom Menace in delivering a pretty engaging story, and I think some of the action's really good. The subplots, well, the Anakin and Padme subplots atrocious,
I think
as we all know, but overall I think it's a pretty solid film.
I'll agree with Cooper. I think the only reason why it's not amazing is because of the horrendous subplot of the dialogue and
Yeah.
just everything about the Anakin Padme stuff felt a bit forced and not too fluid. And the chemistry was there in some aspects, but I don't think it was excelled as much as it could have been. And that's why it's a bit better overall as a whole compared to Phantom, but not amazing.
Yeah.
I was gonna say the same thing. I think if the dialogue was just a bit better and not so wooden as it's known, it easily would have elevated the film and put it up into amazing. Even
Right.
possibly cinematic masterpiece.
I think if it had more clone action, I would go
It would need,
cinematic
it would
masterpiece.
need a bit more to reach cinematic
More
masterpiece.
clones.
But
Well, it's called Attack of the Clones, so you would hope for more clones, I
More
guess.
like the battle at the end at Geonosis was so cool, but I think
Oh,
it
yeah.
felt very short in comparison to the rest of the film. So
Yes,
and
definitely.
I've always enjoyed Attack of the Clones, and I think also the political side with like Count Dooku and that sort of thing as well.
Trade
And
Federation.
I think because of the Clone Wars, it makes this movie better because it leads into it.
That's true.
100%.
Oh,
All right, Revenge of the Sith. Ready, set,
Yeah.
let's go. Oh well, we know it.
Already.
Jack's
I'm
going
not
straight away.
more straight up. Mine's going to amazing as well as Cooper.
All right, Jack,
Should I go
you go.
first? Yeah. Look, I've said it time and time again. It's just the pinnacle of what everything I want from a Star Wars movie. It has the best scores, I reckon, in the entire franchise, the best choreographed fight scenes. The pacing is start to finish, you're in the action and you're with the story. The plot was basic, but they elevated it through the character interactions. And it's just overall space battles. What more could you ask for? It's just perfect in every aspect, in my opinion. And it is, I don't think it would ever be topped as a for any other Star Wars movie in comparison, unless they start doing major changes and stuff to what they're already doing. So yeah, that's my opinion.
Very good.
Yes, very
I
nice.
I thought that I do agree it's a great movie, and I think it's probably the most consistent in showing uh good Star Wars, I guess you could say, throughout the whole film. Like, there's not really any dull moments. You're always sort of engaged in the story. The action's phenomenal, and I think it's probably the pinnacle of lightsaber action that we're going to get. And even the characters we got introduced to were just really good. And obviously the conclusion to Anakin Skywalker as a not conclusion as a Jedi, but I would say um his story as the prime Jedi that we know is done. So I think
Mhm.
it's a good film. I personally think that there's better, but we'll get to that later.
I'd agree on all points, and I want to make a specific note, as you said, of the lightsaber fighting and action. But also, I think in this is one of the movies with the best music.
Mhm.
I feel like that's worth mentioning. Like Anakin, what is it? Anakin's Betrayal, I think it's called.
Yeah, and Dark
That,
Deeds.
yeah, it's just they're just so good. They're just such good soundtracks,
Mm.
and it really
Alrighty.
elevates the movie itself.
It
100%.
does. I agree. All right. A New Hope. Oh wait, no, hang on. Let's not
No,
do A
no,
New Hope.
no.
Let's do Rogue
Solo.
One first. Yeah, yeah. My
Solo.
bad. Oh,
Solo,
Solo.
yeah,
Was
Solo.
Solo first?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We'll do
It's Rogue.
Solo.
I think Rogue One follows into A New Hope in the same thing. I swear, Solo's before Rogue, but either
Okay.
way,
Pretty sure, yeah. I
all
think
All
they're
right.
so.
simultaneous. Who knows? But I
Solo.
think we'll go Solo.
3, 2, 1.
What? Did you put in the middle?
Yeah, I did.
Oh,
I'm actually gonna put Solo above Attack of the Clones for me. Oh shit! Oh
Oh
crap!
no, you moved the
No,
whole
no, 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 no,
screen.
no. I got this. I got this. I got this. I
Okay.
got
All
this.
right. Good. Good
Okay.
man.
Mark.
I'm gonna put mine, and I didn't realize we could do in between, so I'm gonna do that and
Nah, you
say,
can't go in between,
All
Cooper.
right. I'll change. I'll
Go in
change.
between. Don't sit on the front.
Oh,
ah,
this
now I
is
need
so
to come to a
tricky.
decision then. Hmm.
Okay.
Oh my,
No
I
way.
think
No.
I'm gonna put mine in average,
No way, guys. That's so
but
hard.
I will have to. I'll go first because I do want to say that Solo is actually a really good film,
It's underrated.
and it's very underrated, and I'm very glad that I rewatched it for the rewatch series. But in comparison, since we're comparing them to the other Star Wars movies, that's why I'm putting it in average. Because
I'll go next.
personally, I enjoyed Attack of the Clones and Phantom Menace more than I enjoyed Solo. But that doesn't mean I didn't enjoy Solo.
The reason why I put it above Attack of the Clones and Phantom Menace is because it's got like one of the best characters in the entire Star Wars franchise, in my opinion, being Han Solo. And I think it elevates his character depth better. And I also enjoy a good old classic smuggler bounty heist type of movie, and that's always what I've been drawn
That
to.
is true as well, yeah.
So I'm going off pure what I want to see in Star Wars movies. So like the thing is, I do love obviously Anakin and I love the Jedi and I love all that kind of stuff. But then again, we barely see any of the other stuff. And I think it's done really well in this film, and it's very underrated considering the time period it came out and how not well received it was from the critics. But I personally would rather watch Solo more times than I would rather watch Attack of the Clones and Phantom Menace too. That's my opinion.
That's
I'm
fair enough.
gonna agree with you, and I'm so sorry to anyone who's watching or listening and watching later who sees I've put Solo in hot garbage. There's it's hard to explain because every time I watch Solo, I just get so bored. Like, it's got great action, it's got great story and great characters, and it's got a great twist at the end. But I don't know why. I just get bored watching it. And even
Hmm.
I think back to what I was mentioning in our rewatch series, I think it's just such a slow movie. It starts off really quick and then it just drags until the end. And
That's funny how you say that when you
it's like
like
the
it.
Phantom Menace, but I would much rather watch Phantom Menace because I think as much as Dryden is a very compelling villain, I think Darth Maul, I'd rather say Darth Maul for 10 minutes than Dryden Voss be intimidating for 15, 20 minutes. So I don't think it's as bad as a lot of people think. And I know I've put it in hot garbage. That's just the lowest tier we have, but it's my least favorite one. Just gonna put that out there.
Eh.
Yeah. Sorry, not sorry.
Interesting.
It's interesting how he calls it boring when he likes the last chapter.
Hey, hang on.
Such a boring movie.
No.
Anyway, let's continue. Let's continue.
Rogue One. All right.
Easy.
Oh,
Three,
yes.
3, 2,
1.
1.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's no
All
debate
right.
here.
We're all in agreement on this one.
Yeah, yeah.
This is like peak gritty war action movie. Even if you take away
Wow.
the Star Wars elements from it,
Yeah.
it's just such a good story.
I don't think it's better
And
than Revenge, in my opinion, though. That's mine. But
okay, that's fine.
I've got the tier list here.
Yeah, but I just they managed to do so much in 2.5 hours.
Mm.
Even just introducing the characters, they make you feel like you got to root for these characters that they're taking on such an impossible mission. And just there's so many iconic lines, and I still think quotes of the day, the make 10 men feel like 100. That's just incredible writing, it's incredible directing, and it's just it fills in a gap of Star Wars that we didn't need, but I'm so glad we got.
Yep.
I definitely think it's a movie that I think was also so good and elevated in terms of critics and stuff on how the Disney era was so unwell received amongst the fans. So it made this one feel like it was very treasured amongst the community as a whole. So I think it kind of made people realize that maybe we don't just need Sith and Jedi. Like obviously you get a cool Darth Vader cameos every now and then, but you know, you're not going to call a movie a cinematic masterpiece if it, you know, has a 10-second clip of Darth. But I think the ground scale warfare has done really well. And I think just having a bit more of the people who aren't such as the most powerful people ever, like a rebel trooper, just so you find it interesting just to see how they, you know, do amongst, you know, other people like them kind of in a way, you know. So it's good to just see a bit more of a grounded story, I think.
I completely agree. It's great to see what it's like for the actual rebel troopers as opposed to the leaders of the rebellion. I think this movie's just got fantastic writing in terms of dialogue, in terms of story. The music's great, the action's great. I love the locations, the characters, heroes and villains are all fantastic.
Mm.
And in regards to what Jack was saying about Disney, I want to make a mention that this is obviously their best Disney Star Wars film, and it doesn't even feel like a Disney one in my opinion. It
Yeah.
feels like one of the it could pass as an original or a George Lucas Star Wars film in my
Yeah, I
opinion.
think that's why a lot of the fan base, I mean, I wouldn't say a lot because there's obviously some people that might think the other ones are just as good, but I think it's a bit more, how do I say this? A bit more well received amongst everyone, not just the select demographic of the Star Wars community, which is good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think it's really telling the fact that we can still talk about it and be so excited about it amongst us three, and even moving into Andor as well. They're just similar things, so it's really good.
Yeah,
For sure.
All right, shall we do A New Hope now?
Oh, yeah.
let's do it.
All right, 3, 2, 1.
Up on the photo. Got it. There we go. What about you?
Mark?
Mine's going in amazing.
Cool.
Mm.
Is it better than Revenge?
I'm gonna say yes.
Okay, I got to move Revenge over.
I've
Right.
also got to move. Oh, I think I moved the background. Hang on.
No, that's right. Yeah, just you know, it's a bit fiddly, but it
It
makes
is a
it.
bit fiddly. I'm not gonna attempt it. I think that's smart.
You got to attempt it. It's the risk. There we go. All right. So we have Cooper with great, we have Mark with amazing, and we have myself with also amazing. So interesting. Who wants to go first, Mark?
All right, I'll go first. Now, I think I've said it so many times before, but I think just the fact that it's the original and it's the first movie, it sets everything up. It's the jumping off point for all other Star Wars media. And the movie itself, personally, I know there's a bit of disagreement among our group here. but I just think it's a really great movie, really enjoyable, and I personally didn't find it any. I personally did not find it boring.
Hmm. Interesting. So leading on to that, I agree with Mark in most of them. Aside from, I do think, however, A New Hope lacks in. I don't want to be mean. I don't want to be critical of it because of it being the first one and being, good for its time. But I think the story is the most basic that we have almost, aside from like a few that I have in my head that I'll mention later. But I think it suffers from not realizing that it's going to become a franchise almost, that because they kind of like try to just end a lot of the main characters story. Like I feel like if he knew at the start, Obi-Wan I don't think would have died. That's my hot take. I don't know. Some character decisions I feel like were just made for the movie to be like its own thing. And I think it is pretty slow, which does make it harder for me to rewatch it, but it carries in the nostalgia factor and it carries in for having the great characters that we all
Yeah,
love today. So
100% agree.
yeah.
I'm gonna stick by this point. I don't like Luke in this movie. I think I think he's a well-written character, and his development in the later two films, sorry, later four films, sorry, later five films is pretty
Who
good.
cares?
But I think just looking at him in this movie, he doesn't offer a lot to me. I think he's just a bit of a weak character, and I know that's unpopular, but I mean, I don't know how to describe it. I just I don't like Luke, but the supporting cast is great. The whole plot's pretty good. Um, I like a lot of the quotes. I know we go over the quotes every week, but there's some pretty good ones in there. And the reason I didn't put it as amazing is because mentioned this on the Last Jedi podcast, and I know this movie was 1977, but it just doesn't look very good. So,
Visuals.
The
I
only
mean, hey,
thing,
I
the only
said it
thing,
doesn't make the story for me, but I said it adds to the story. So, yeah.
personally, one of the only things I didn't enjoy about A New Hope is that hardly any of the characters had a proper reaction, in my opinion, to what they would feel of grief from the
Um,
death of loved ones,
I don't know.
etc.
I like to think that everyone handles it differently, and shock being one
I
of the
just
main factors.
don't get that Leia has almost no reaction to Alderaan being
I
blown
don't
up.
know. I think shock factor. Debatable,
Yeah.
very debatable. But yeah,
All right.
I'm excited for this one. Very
Oh, this is another one I feel like is going to be
universal,
pretty,
maybe.
yeah. All right. Empire. Three, two, one, go. Yeah.
Mark,
All right, we're all in agreement again on this
Yeah.
you
one.
going up?
Yep.
Is it better than Rogue One?
I'm gonna keep Rogue One at the top.
Okay. Let's keep
Ooh,
that there.
interesting.
Oh yeah, this
All
is
right.
good. I
I
like it.
think, I mean, we're all going to talk about how great it is. I just, every time I watch this, I don't know why, but I hesitate watching it because I'm like, oh, is it as good as I remember? Yes, it is way better than I remember.
Mm.
There's so much good stuff in this, so much that I'm not going to talk about it all, but I think the story behind the Luke's training, I think he's done
Mm.
so well in this movie, confronting his fear and his fate and whatever. And just the whole on the run. I know you guys aren't a fan of rebels being on the run, but
Whoa, you're good.
I thought it was done pretty well, and I think it really showcases Han's skills as a pilot, Leia's leadership, and C-3PO's constant badgering.
Mm.
So
Well, if I
love it.
may, I think I don't think you're correct there when you say you guys don't like the rebels on the run thing. We don't like that in The Last Jedi,
Mm.
but I actually think the story works in this film. I don't know why it would be different to Last Jedi. Maybe it's just the overall story and just the general writing. But I just think this like so I think one of the best things about The Empire Strikes Back is just the character development. There's so much for all the characters, especially Luke, which I think Cooper is one of the reasons you like it so much is
Yeah,
because Luke is basically in a lot of ways a different character to what he was
yeah,
in A New
I
Hope.
agree. Yep.
And I think just the like what do you call it, the stakes that's going of the galaxy, and that Luke has a lot resting on his shoulders. And I think just yeah, just such a great movie
Mm.
overall. All the locations again, like Bespin is awesome.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very
Hoth,
good.
yeah.
I'm gonna be honest here. This is the pinnacle and what they should show and use as an example for how to subvert expectations correctly. Okay, this movie here this is not a criticism on it, but it feels like a filler subplot of a whole like it doesn't there's that the beginning to the end. There's no real um like change within the galaxy and as a
Mm.
whole, but it is for the rebels and the Empire who we're following the story with. This whole movie feels like it's like a filler side mission, but it's a great side mission, and it's one that is like so perfect in my opinion. So when you have the other movies where it's like at the start and at the end, most of the time, aside from Last Jedi 2, which almost now that I think of it, is almost trying to do an Empire, but just I don't think was well received for a lot of people. But it doesn't really have a beginning and end. It's almost like, oh, this is literally the middle movie of the franchise. We're not gonna make too much of a impact on the entire story, but impact on the characters who we'll see in the eventual next one, which will sum up the whole story. So I think it does a perfect way to bridge the two movies together and make the whole trilogy be one of the most strong, like the one as known as this one of the strongest trilogies of the entire Star Wars franchise.
Yeah, I'll just mention, and I don't want to get into this discussion because I feel like we're going to get off track. But you mentioned that, the plot's good, but it's all about the character development in this one. That's what you really like. That's exactly what The Last Jedi is. It's meant for character development. It's got a boring plot so that it can thrive in developing Rey and Luke and Finn and Poe, the main
Well, we won't
characters.
go into the discussion, but I just want to
Yeah.
say you can't say that Empire has boring. You just said The
No, no,
Last
no,
Jedi
no,
has
no.
boring storyline
Its
because of
storyline's not boring compared
for
to
for
last.
character development.
No,
The
no,
thing is,
no.
Cooper,
The
I was saying,
Empire does not have that. It
Cooper,
has a good storyline.
your opinion is that you really see these two movies being almost hand in hand,
they're
when
similar. They're very
when
similar.
we don't see it at all, and a lot of other people don't. The reason why is that you said, boring story. Last Jedi's story is so boring, it doesn't even want you, I don't even want to continue watching this. This one made me feel worried for the characters and how their futures would turn out. And also, you said character development.
Mm.
Character development's fine, but it is up for interpretation, and I get that. But the character development for Last Jedi felt like they just absolutely put it in the bin. It's like they
Yeah.
didn't develop them. They
But
had
again, this
a good foundation, and then they just threw them in the gutter.
But again, this is up for interpretation because I completely disagree with that. I think what they did
Yeah,
with the characters is fine. But in
yeah.
terms of the plot, like I wasn't saying that the like Han plot or whatever is or the fleeing plot is boring. I was
You.
saying that in terms of The Last Jedi, yes, it can drag on. And it can in Empire as well, but I guess it always keeps you kind of I don't know, it keeps you engaged in different ways, but also like so in Empire, it's with like the asteroid field and Cloud City. With The Last Jedi, it's what's Holdo doing? What are the what's she doing with the transports? Anyway, we can finish there. I
Yeah,
just
how interesting does that sound in comparison off the book?
hey, why would you you guys
Holdo,
have complained about the carbon copy that The Force Awakens is of A New Hope? Would you be mad if it was a carbon copy of Empire?
because Empire's like one of the best movies of the
Oh
entire Star Wars
God.
franchise.
See, I can't, I'm trying to
I don't
logically
think the
reason with you guys,
I
but
don't
it
think
doesn't
the
work.
issue of the carbon copy is which one they did. I think it's just the fact that they weren't original.
Mm.
Yeah, all right. Anyway, we're getting away from the thing, so let's move on
Right.
to Return of the Jedi.
Oh,
All right.
interesting. Okay,
3, 2. Oh, actually, I need to think. 1.
I'm ready.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
go.
ready.
Go, Mark.
Jack, I'm putting mine in the same spot as you.
Wait, before
The top of amazing,
is it where?
like at the top part of amazing,
So here,
as the better one, the best one
okay.
in the amazing section.
I have to do some reshuffling here.
Yeah, so do I.
As we do this, you guys can have a
All right, I'll say why I did mine.
go for
So
it.
I feel absolutely terrible that I put it in great because I love Return of the Jedi. As much as I know we ragged on it in the podcast about our breakdown about kind of it not really making sense and it being really a 3-act story and there's not really anything that binds it all together. It's all very mishmashy. Um, I think back to the last at least 40 minutes of the movie are some of the best Star Wars moments ever. The battle at Endor is fantastic. Everyone
Mm.
gets their moment. As silly as the Ewoks are, I think
Mm.
Leia and Han seeing them in action. We haven't really seen them in action like too much in the originals. And then obviously you've got the absolute standout going on the Death Star with Luke and Vader and Palpatine, and then even just the ending. That's perfect. It is the perfect last 40 minutes to a Star Wars movie ever. And I feel so bad putting it in great because it could technically be an amazing, but just yeah, I think back
Yeah.
to that first 2 hours or hour and a half, and that takes it away from me.
See, yeah, I'm on the same agreement as you on that, but I think it doesn't lower it into great. But the start of the movie is very long, in my opinion, especially when we rewatched it. I think most times when I rewatch it, I might be doing something else or eating food or something because when you're just sitting there watching that everything about Tatooine, I actually, you know what? I think has affected my viewing of it on how much we've got Tatooine in the other recent projects, which makes me go back and see this one and be like, Tatooine again, but this was done like originally, you know. So I think that's probably what takes it away. But the last 40 minutes makes it amazing, in my opinion, because it's just so strong with character development. Again, it caps off their franchise perfectly, which is another reason why I think the sequels probably didn't even need to happen because I thought the franchise was fine being 1 to 6 and just having individual stories outside of it, like Solo and Rogue One and all that. After almost probably would have elevated a bit more and make a bit more sense. But I just think putting it in great would just be a disservice to how good they concluded. Well, 4 to 6, and then even when it comes into the 1 to 6. So I think it's just a perfect conclusion for the 1 to 6 franchise. Yeah.
And I would pretty much agree with everything you just said, Jack. The only thing I would disagree on is that, and I said it during our episode of Return, is that I don't think the Jabba's palace bit went on. It did time wise, it did go on for a while, but I didn't feel like it was dragging. I was always engaged and always paying attention to what was happening. But I really wanted to mention, as you said, how it was a perfect conclusion to the saga. And I think that, first of all, in terms of its own movie, is what makes it so amazing, is that everything ends in such a great way. The end of the Empire with the blowing up of the Death Star and the proper death of the Emperor, I might add.
Mhm.
But also the redemption of Anakin, obviously, is one of the best parts in this film and as in the saga as a whole. And I think that's one of the main reasons why most people dislike the sequel so much
Mm.
is simply because they essentially threw out the conclusion to the saga in this movie and just rewrote all of it. They
Mm.
removed Anakin's redemption, they brought Palpatine back, so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very good.
All right. Well, speaking of sequels, it's
Well,
time to get into them. Now, I've got to be honest, I kind of know exactly where you guys are going to put your movies.
really.
So I'm fully ready to look in disgust at what you guys are going to put, as
And
I
we're
feel
ready
you
to
guys are
look
going
at
to do for
disgust
me.
at what you're going to do.
Yeah, I know. So we'll begin with The Force Awakens. Oh, God.
3,
2,
2,
1.
1. Where are you putting yours, Mark?
I'm putting it the same spot as you, Jack.
Perfect. Love it.
All right. Who's going to start? Because I feel
I'll go
like.
first. I'll
I
go
reckon
first.
Cooper needs to start with and defend himself on these ones because
Can I do?
It's
Can
all
I do
right.
the next
He's
one?
already
I'll do the next one.
he's already had his opportunity to defend. I think I'll go first. And the reason I put it in average is because I've said through the other episodes of our rewatch series for the sequels, I think The Force Awakens is the best of the sequels, which also shows where I'm going to put the other two. But it's actually enjoyable. And even though it is a copy of A New Hope, and I've said it so many times, but it left you at the end of the film ready for what's going to happen next. But I think the reason that it's hated upon so much is simply because it's one of the sequels. But I think as a movie itself, it was actually enjoyable and it was a good introduction to the new characters and was, again, a good setup for the next two movies.
I think this tier list is harsh because you got amazing, great, and average. All those three are basically fine. They're all like 5 and above kind of thing. You know what I mean? So putting in average, but in this tier list looks like it's like the second worst, but it's not actually that bad. There obviously would be layers, within this. But I think personally, in the reason why I've put it below A New Hope, even though it's a rehash, is because A New Hope's characters I enjoy better. The only thing, and like story wise, even still, I prefer the Death Star over Star Killer Base.
Yep.
I think it's a bit extreme, but
I
I do
agree.
think it's visually cool. The only reason why it's not hot garbage for me is just because they don't destroy the characters just yet, and I'm still hoping that there's something after it, but
Exactly.
there's not. But also, I was gonna say, oh yeah, the visuals in this movie doesn't make like for this one doesn't make it better than A New Hope because it's a rehash. I just think it just doesn't help elevate it as much to higher.
Mm.
Yeah.
I've been thinking a lot recently about why I really like The Force Awakens. And there's obviously the reasons I explained in the podcast. It's got good story, handles the legacy characters really well, gives Han Solo a satisfying conclusion. You got a compelling villain. But I think, and this is going to be like maybe a little bit confusing to you guys, this was the first kind of Star Wars movie I watched in full. I didn't go watch it in the cinema, but it was the first one I watched kind of, and I knew what was going on. Like, I might have watched one of the prequel movies on TV once, but I didn't really understand what was going on. This was the
Yeah.
first one I took an interest in it. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, that's pretty good. And that's not solely the reason why, but I think I do have a bit of a special connection to The Force Awakens. Um, yeah, I think overall it's a really solid film.
This is why you like the sequels. It's it's
Not
the first
really.
proper one you've actually watched.
Well,
Yeah, that's
it's the first
interesting. I
one I
never knew
paid
that.
attention to and was like, oh yeah, this is pretty cool. And I mean, to be fair, if this is the first one, if I've watched the originals first and I've seen the visuals get better, I maybe think different. But because maybe I hold this at such a high standard and watch this before, like knowing consciously before the originals, then it's kind of like, oh yeah, this look kind of bad in comparison. So I don't know. Anyway,
So I got a question quickly
yeah.
before we move on to the next movie. Can we all just I'm interested to hear because only for you guys listening or watching right now, that's the first time I realized Cooper's properly. He did say he probably may watched a bit of the other ones on TV, but like full start to finish interest was Force Awakens. I'd
Yeah.
like to know, Mark, what was your first Star Wars movie that you remember watching?
Well, I just want to say first of all that I am very surprised about that. I didn't actually know that it was the first one Cooper's properly intently watched.
Hmm.
But as for me, I can't actually remember that well because I watched them all when I was really young.
Yeah.
So I've just been, I've had them all in my head all the way
Hmm.
since I've been growing up. So I think I don't know, it might have been one of the might have been one or two, but it also may have been possibly even Return of the Jedi might have been the first one I
Yeah.
watched. I'm not sure I remember exactly, but
Yeah.
I think that's also another reason why I've always liked Return of the Jedi because I know I've watched it a lot as a child. I think that might have been my most watched
Yeah.
Star Wars movie as a child.
Funny you mention that because Return of the Jedi was the first time I remember watching a Star Wars movie, and to this day, I still kind of get a bit annoyed that my father didn't show me A New Hope first and go in the proper order. But it was hilarious because it was on VHS, so
Mm.
like, and then he obviously recorded off like a television one, so you had like the ads, so like you fast forwarded it through the thing. It was so funny. But I
Yeah.
remember it being my first one too because I was so scared of seeing Darth Vader's bald head. I don't know I don't know what it was, but it scared me, and yeah, it
Yeah,
was
that would be frightening as a child, yeah.
yeah, it was hilarious. So it's funny how that was the first one, but I don't think that's why I put it in the if nostalgia was like that, it would be cinematic masterpiece. But
I agree, yeah.
I'm a bit more
For returns,
I think now, yeah.
I hope your dad's not listening.
Yeah. Savage.
Um, yeah, so I was just gonna actually I pretty much mentioned everything about The Force Awakens. I think yeah, that connection is important. And I was quite upset. I mean, I knew Star Wars was a thing, and I remember, and I know we're kind of going off track here, but I remember listening to the radio in my room. Yes, the radio, um, in my room when I was cleaning it one day. This is when I was maybe like 11 or 12. And I remember they were saying, this just in, um, Star Wars is getting episode 7. It's coming out in 2015. And I
Mm.
thought, oh, cool. Maybe I should start getting into it. And so I did. And
Well,
yeah.
I have a theory now that I know that, and I'm wondering if Cooper is so lenient with Luke's character story in the sequels because he was first introduced to Luke as a hermit.
Yeah.
Not necessarily. I mean,
Consciously, maybe.
I
Yeah,
well,
unconsciously.
Mm.
look, I knew Luke Skywalker was a thing. I wasn't like that
Yeah.
oblivious to the fact that he was a character in the originals
Yeah.
and that they had come beforehand. But um I
But
honestly,
that's
the
what I'm
reason
saying
I
in terms of his development as a
no,
character. Maybe
unrelated. I honestly think it's an interesting direction to take him.
Okay.
That's honest. Okay. Last Jedi.
This
Three,
is
two, one.
Jack, I don't even need to tell you.
mine is below hot garbage. Mine is so far down. No, I'm kidding. I have to put it here. Yours
Oh
are
wow, right in the
Yeah,
corner.
mine.
yours
Yeah,
they go
hot
here.
garbage.
Um, I want to start off by saying I don't want to talk about this movie. That's how bad I hate it. That's how much I
Yeah.
hate it. So done. My point's
Oh
done.
wow.
Mhm.
Wow.
Well, I don't want to have to go into it all again because they've done it so
Everything I
many
had to.
times, and we spent a very long time on the Last Jedi episode.
Mhm.
But to just do a brief summary, the story is just sucks, and my main issue with it is Luke and what they did with Luke.
Okay, that's it.
I don't want to mention.
That was
Yep.
I said it would be brief.
Oh yeah, you did. Okay, so I put it in amazing. I know the people who watch the podcast or listen to the podcast heard me make the very bold claim that I thought it was a cinematic masterpiece. I still think it is. I still think it is. And I would probably put all five of these in cinematic masterpiece, but just some of them are better. I think now that I think about it more, The Force Awakens is probably a bit better, but I like them both as much as each other. And just since we're going off of like nostalgic things, this was the first movie I watched in the cinema.
It all makes sense, viewers. It
No,
all makes
no,
sense.
It's all coming together.
It's all coming
but you
together.
got to think. I don't know if you had the same experience in your cinema, but when you saw Luke Skywalker as a ghost and Kylo Ren go vroom through him, and you're like, "Oh crap, he's not dead." Oh my God, he's doing it. Or when the ship goes boom into the other ship. No?
I watched Force Awakens in the movies. That was my first movie.
Yeah, same here.
But
Well,
I was more shocked on he wasn't there, and it kind of made me sad that he wasn't going to do a sacrifice at the battle like Obi-Wan kind of did. So I was a bit more disappointed rather than shock factor. And with the
yeah.
light speed thing through the ship, I was like, visually, whoa, that's cool in the cinema. But I was like, that makes zero sense in my head. I was like, how does this?
All I remember about seeing Force Awakens is Sinner. I was coming out angry at that they killed Han Solo.
It's fun.
Hey, Jack, have you seen Oppenheimer yet?
No, I haven't yet. So no
Oh,
spoilers.
okay. Sorry, I was gonna say something, but
I know about the bomb, like absolutely rattling apparently cinema speakers. So that's quite fun.
yeah. Don't worry. Um, and one more thing I'll just mention about The Last Jedi, and it's something not related to the story, and I think it's something I forgot to mention in the podcast. It has the slowest start ever, like from the Lucasfilm logo to a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and then to the intro crawl. It feels absurdly long in comparison to the other films, which is
Wait,
weird.
which
Haven't
one are we
noticed.
talking about here?
The Last Jedi.
Haven't
Oh.
noticed.
Yeah, I didn't
Yeah, I
notice that
know.
either.
I just remember being sitting in silence in the cinema for what felt like a long time, just waiting for it to for the Star Wars thing to play. Anyway, that's just a side note. All right, last one. Rise of Skywalker. I mean, three, two, one. I'm actually going to change my
Mark?
time.
Oh, I'm
Mark?
putting mine in hot garbage at the bottom.
Wow.
No, not that far at the bottom, just below the Last Jedi. Yeah.
All right.
I would like to go on this one
Yep.
because I have a hot take. So if we could do halves, I would go like this. So I think everything about this movie is so bad. Okay, let's just get that out of the way. I think it's bad, but I have more fun watching this movie on a rewatch than I do with Last Jedi because it doesn't make me as mad. Oh, rhymes. But also if we talk about cinema experiences, this was the first movie I have watched at a midnight screening. So being the first, like, you know, and I saw everyone dressed up as Kylo Ren and Rey, and people were doing the American thing of clapping and and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, this is so great.
Yeah, that's
And then
a
I
very
saw
American thing, isn't it?
oh yeah, and then I saw Kylo Ren force choke someone onto the roof, and then I saw him re-get his helmet, and he was stronger than Rey, and I was like, oh, this is perfect. This is everything I wanted. And then I came out kind of like a bit, maybe like a couple weeks after, I was like, this made no sense. Like this made, and the ending made me angry, of course, with the Rey Skywalker thing. But I think the reason why it's in hot garbage is because the story is, I think, just slightly better than Last Jedi because it doesn't infuriate me and tediously as much, but it makes zero sense. And it does ruin one of my favorite characters of the entire Star Wars franchise. So that really thoroughly gets on my back. But I enjoyed the fight scenes and I enjoyed Kylo Ren in particular. I thought this was the best movie he was in, but it doesn't elevate it above Force Awakens, primarily because the Force Awakens is a rehash. But cinema experience wise, it was actually like really good. I recommend midnight screening to anyone, and especially if there's a Star Wars movie. I think Dave Filoni is going to do a movie after all these shows, so I recommend to everyone midnight screening. It's so worth it.
You'll see us there.
You'll see us
If I
there.
can go next, the reason I put it at the bottom is because, and I can't, sure, it may be a bit more interesting to watch than The Last Jedi. And The Last Jedi, I would even probably agree it drags on and is more boring than The Rise of Skywalker. But I just think I would prefer watch The Last Jedi because I just can't get on board at all with what they did in The Rise of Skywalker. And I've said it again and again and again that the writers not collaborating just doesn't make any sense to me. That's why the movies are so bad. And whilst The Last Jedi destroyed Luke and everything about him, The Rise of Skywalker destroyed the legacy of what had happened throughout the whole saga by simply saying somehow Palpatine has returned. And the fact that they just disregarded the entire redemption story of Darth Vader and Anakin and Luke bringing him back to the light and every other thing that that they destroyed story wise, I have to put it right at the bottom of hot garbage.
Mm.
Fair enough. I put it in great because, and above Attack of the Clones, because I think the you don't really have any side plots. It's really you just focus on the one plot, and it's not bad. And it's at least entertaining because they jump around to different planets like every 10 minutes. Whereas with Attack of the Clones, you kind of it's more of a slow burner, but it picks up towards the end. So for those reasons, and for the reasons that you guys have said about it, not really making sense, which I agree with, and I think it's a bit cheesy in some sections. I've put it at great. It's probably
Yeah.
my least favorite sequel, but I still think it's all right. I think I've grown to like it more and more. My least favorite viewing of it was in the cinema. That's what I'll say.
Why?
I had a bad cinema experience. I was sitting with people who were uh not screaming, but making weird noises throughout the movie. So
Over the
kind
top.
of, huh?
Over the top.
Yeah,
Yeah.
over the movie. So that was
Yeah.
kind of distracting.
That's annoying.
Yeah.
And I said this in the podcast, but when Chewbacca died, I knew he wasn't dead
Yeah.
because I saw in the trailer that he was running with Finn and Poe in the Star Destroyer, so I knew he wasn't dead. So just those
Yeah.
sort of things. But I mean,
But let's
the
be
Force
honest, that
lightning and
happens
everything
every
was
year.
fine. That was cool.
I was gonna say that happens every time in a lot of Marvel stuff recently too. Like you just know there's so many fake death scenes and stuff now that you see in they reveal so much in trailers. Trailers nowadays have become so heavy on plot and everything about what's going to happen in the movie. A trailer should just show you glimpses of how it looks and the overall vibe is giving off, but it should not give you anything about a plot. And I really don't like that how it does. So
Mm.
yeah. Side note.
Alrighty, so we're done. Just for the listeners on Spotify and Apple Podcasts who maybe can't see the graphic or haven't gone to look at it, we'll go through our rankings. So I've gone Empire and Rogue One in cinematic masterpiece, then Revenge of the Sith, Force Awakens, Last Jedi, and Amazing, Return of the Jedi, A New Hope, Rise of Skywalker, and Attack of the Clones in great, Phantom Menace and average, and Solo and hot garbage.
All right. And for me, in cinematic masterpiece, we have Rogue One and Empire. Amazing is Return of the Jedi, A New Hope, and Revenge of the Sith. Great is Attack of the Clones and the Phantom Menace. Average is Solo and The Force Awakens. And hot garbage is The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker.
And last but not least, myself, I have Revenge of the Sith, Empire Strikes Back, Rogue One, all in cinematic masterpiece. I have Return of the Jedi and A New Hope in amazing. And then I have Solo and Attack of the Clones in great. Average, I have Phantom Menace and Force Awakens. And in hot garbage, I have Rise of Skywalker. And last but not least, The Last Jedi.
Very good. Last thing before we leave, we are doing a tournament poll at the moment. Movie posters. This will take a while. There's 30 different movie posters. Oh, not movie posters, but project posters. We've already had two Both have been lopsided results so far, so
Also,
they'll be
just
moving on.
yeah, also just like to mention with the posters, it's if you are gonna vote in these community things, it's not about how good or how
Yes.
much the show is or the movie is or something. It's just solely on the poster. For
Yeah.
example, Star Wars Visions is one of the ones that have, as season one, that one of the ones have come out with Rebels season one, I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
Yep.
Wow. Rebels is a much better, in my opinion, season than Visions, but that poster is so bad.
Yeah.
I think
Exactly.
I believe personally I would go Visions. Thus, poster wins that kind of thing. So yeah, make sure it's not off the actual project itself, but the
Yeah,
poster.
it's the poster.
Yeah.
So we'll be posting daily, and we'll kind of gather the results.
Yeah, we're doing it's more of a tournament sort of thing.
It is. But so we'll leave the polls up there for a while before we kind of determine who the winner is, so we can just get the most amount of votes. And then yeah, well, this will take a while. So get to voting. We're interested in your input. And that's on YouTube. So you can
Yep.
find it in the community tab if you want to go look. But for the moment, thanks for tuning in. This was a good discussion, and I hope now we've painted a clearer picture for you for what our Star Wars preferences are.
What I love, I just want to also mention how I love how different the shapes are of our rankings. Like Cooper's got heaps in the middle,
Yeah.
and then me and Jack are more evenly balanced.
Yeah.
Well,
I've
you're
got
definitely evenly balanced.
it's
Yeah, and
funny.
I did not intend for that to happen. It's just quite funny how it happened like that.
You know what I find quite funny is that I'm known for the person who rags and very overly critical on Star Wars movie. However, I've got 3 in cinematic masterpieces when you guys have 2. So come on now, guys. What's going on here? I don't rag on it entirely. I'm just very, opinionated with it.
Yeah,
As we all are, aren't we?
Yeah, that's very.
indeed, indeed.
All right. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next
Thank you,
week.
guys.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye bye.